There it is, guys. It's Diggersby, and that can only mean one thing. The time has come for me to tell you everything you need to know and more about Diggersby PvP IVs. Here we have the Diggersby PvP IV Guide. So why Diggersby when I could talk about literally any other Pokemon? Well, if you haven't noticed, Diggersby is pretty good in a lot of these limited formats in GBL, like Retro Cup and the Remix Cups. Diggersby's like threats, the main things that kind of hold it back in the open meta, such as like Altaria and Azumarill. Not that Diggersby is bad in the open meta, it is quite good in the open meta. But with those Pokemon out of the way, Diggersby kind of dominates a little bit and tears things apart with its giant meaty arm ear things. So I figured, hey, maybe we could refine the IVs here and make Diggersby look a little bit better. On top of that, I already had a couple threads towards better Diggersby IV spreads because when I returned from my COVID break, one of my longtime patrons, Davin, also known as Blue-Haired Freak, requested that I look into Diggersby, and when I did spend some time back then looking into it, I saw there was some potential to optimize the IVs. So picking it back up and figuring it out here was a little bit easier than it could have been otherwise. So if there's anybody to thank for the creation of this video, definitely thank my boy Davin there, because I probably wouldn't have done this if he didn't inspire me to do it earlier on in the year here. At any rate, what are the spreads? What are the stats that we need on Diggersby to have the most premium possible Diggersby? Well, you're going to want to have a 94.67 or higher attack stat, roughly a 136 or higher defense stat, and then a 178 or higher HP stat. So you might be looking at your rank 1 Diggersby thinking like, oh man, it's like it doesn't get the attack, it doesn't get the HP, it's 177 HP. Is my rank 1 Diggersby complete garbage? And the answer is, yeah, it's total poop. Nah, I'm just kidding you, man. The rank 1's still really, really good. In fact, a lot of the rank like 20, like the top 20 ranked IV Diggersby are all fine. They're all great and stuff. But if you haven't built a Diggersby yet, and you're trying to decide which Diggersby to build, then you're going to want to keep these stats in mind. Now, if you're sitting back going like, oh man, Ryan Swag, how do I check these IVs, man? Like the PV Genie, whatever the heck on my phone, it doesn't tell me what the stats are. Well, you can use the Go Stadium rank checker here. That's a pretty good way to do it. Just plug in your IVs and then it'll tell you what the stats are. It'll also tell you what the rank is too. Or you could use PV Poke here, and you can just plug in your IVs there, and it'll tell you what the stats are too. So those are two ways to figure that out. Of course, in this video, I am going to be highlighting the 46 spreads that do work for Diggersby. Of course, 46 different IV spreads is a lot to reference, so link in the description is my article on GamePress, where I talk about everything I'm basically talking about in this video, but it will have tables highlighting the ideal IV spreads for you so you don't have to constantly reference this video. The article isn't present there immediately. I'm still finishing it, so in the next day or two it should be present there, and then I'll also be posting the article on social media, so Twitter and Facebook. If you haven't followed me there already, make sure to do that so you can check out that article as soon as it's up. At any rate, let's get into the IV spreads here. Why are they significant? Why do we want this attack, this defense, this HP? I'll help you peel back the layers of the Diggersby IV cake here so you can understand what's all going on with Diggersby. Is your rank 1 garbage or not? I'll let you know. So starting out, let's talk about the 178 HP stat. Is my rank 1 Diggersby just garbage now because it doesn't have a 178 HP stat? It only has a 177 HP stat. Well, there are multiple things going on with this. For one, the 178 HP stat matters more the less your defense is. So the rank 1 Diggersby is like basically max defense. So the situations where you need that, like that just 1 extra HP, it doesn't really matter for it because it's able to reduce the charge move damage of its opponents by 1. More often than not. That said, there are still some matchups where it does end up being even, and if you're up against attack-weighted opponents, then that can also kind of override that too. So more often than not, across like just a wide variety of matchups and different shield situations, I'm finding overall the 178 HP matters. It matters a lot less for like the top 20 of all Diggersby that don't have 178 HP, but at the end of the day, if you haven't built a Diggersby yet and you're looking at your options, I think the 178 HP above all else should be kind of like a bit of a tiebreaker there for you. Now when it comes to the best buddy iterations of Diggersby, ones that can hit like 180, 179 HP, are those ones even better than the 178 HPers that aren't a best buddy? And the answer is, it looks like no. What I'm finding is that 178 is like the main kind of consistency maker, at least with the defense cutoff I have here of 136. And anything beyond that is just extra. Like, instead of surviving by just 1 HP, you're now surviving by 2 or 3 HP. So it's nice to have that extra HP because, of course, there will be uneven situations where that extra HP could possibly matter. But above all else, it seems like the 178 HP is like the beginning of where that matters. Like, that's the cutoff. You don't need more, but if you do have more, hey, why not? The next layer to the Diggersby IV cake here is going to be the attack stat. The 94.67 or higher attack stat. What is that attack stat necessarily doing for us? Well, for one, you can get the Skarmory 2-2 shield scenario by having that attack stat. Why? Because your Fire Punch is doing just 1 extra damage. And because of that 1 extra damage, you're able to clip them from reaching a Sky Attack, and you're able to take that matchup. So that is pretty impressive. Additionally, I noticed that there was a Meganium 1-0 shield situation that you could also take as well by having that higher attack stat, as long as you had a high enough defense stat, which is interesting. I don't think that was like the main target there, but it just like showed up when I was running a whole bunch of simulations on it, so I was like, hey, look at that. So another cool thing for the attack stat there. Another area that it can help out in too is in Registeel matchups. And it's not like every single Registeel matchup. It can be a little bit uneven sometimes, especially depending on the Registeel IVs. But the extra Fire Punch damage, right? That can allow you to clip a Registeel from reaching a charge move or close out a fight more consistently against Registeel in more uneven situations. The more consistent situation is against like the rank 1 traded Registeel with like a 2 attack stat. I think that's pretty ridiculous to run into. And if you look at more like reasonable Registeels, it doesn't show up as much because all the Diggersby are getting it anyways because it's losing so much defense and HP. But to that end too, if you are in those more uneven situations, the extra damage on your Earthquake or Fire Punch can allow you to close out those fights, so it is pretty nice to have that. And then of course, there's also the mirror matchup. You get CMP in the mirror if you have the higher attack stat, so that can help out in the Diggersby mirror. That said, Diggersby is using like Hyper Beam, Earthquake, and Fire Punch, so Fire Punch baits, and then you're trying to close with one of the bigger charge moves, so it can be a little bit goofy in that situation, but having the CMP does matter. And if you have the 178 HP with the higher attack stat, that's also good. And then if you have the defense stat along with it, then you don't take too much extra damage from the charge moves where it can cause you to lose the mirror because you're just not tanky enough. So while CMP isn't exactly mandatory for the mirror, it helps. And then there's also some potential matchups you can win as well with this. If you have the higher attack stat, you could potentially beat Swampert, I believe in the 2-2 shield situation. And then you also have the potential to beat Venusaur if you have a shield advantage. Now that can be a little bit more high end for the attack stat, so you're kind of hoping that your opponent has a lower defense stat so you can meet that. Because to meet that consistently against the rank 1s, you're going to have like a crazy high attack stat where you end up dropping too much defense for other matchups. But those are other matchups that you could potentially pull up with that attack stat. Let's say you do want to have that consistency. Well, the attack stat you're looking for then is the 97.47 attack stat, but you do end up bleeding too much defense there where you end up missing out on other important matchups. Additionally, that 97.47 attack stat can also enable you to take down Skarmory in the 1 shield situation. The rank 1 Skarmory, your Fire Punch damage doing that much more damage, so you can clip it from getting a Sky Attack, so you turn your potential loss into a big win there, which is pretty nice. So the 97.47 attack is good, but you lose too much defense to maintain the 178 HP, so a little bit risky. Is my top 20 Diggersby bad because it doesn't have that attack stat? I guess it's only a bit worse in those specific matchups, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. Once again, if you already built the rank 1, the rank 1's probably perfectly fine. And then the final layer to the Diggersby IV cake here is going to be the defense stat, 136, give or take. Probably higher. Higher is always pretty nice on the defense stat. And why do we want this defense stat as our cutoff? Well, it helps with the Sableye 0-1 and 1-2 shield situations. So you're at a shield disadvantage, or maybe you want to save a shield, but you want to whoop this Sableye's ass. Well, having that higher defense stat makes it a lot more consistent for you. On top of that, you also have the Toxicroak 2 shield situation, there is a attack breakpoint Toxicroak can get on you, so if you avoid that, then you do open up the possibility for Diggersby to get a big W in that matchup. And then there is also the Wish Cache 0 shield situation that can also matter with this defense stat. Then there are some other like more wonky matchups, such as Galar Stunfisk. Sometimes the defense matters, sometimes it doesn't matter that much. For like shield disadvantage or you saving a shield for later type situations. And it can also help out against Chestnut, which is kind of weird. But then again, it might be PV Poke being kind of weird because sometimes it reaches like the double superpower, and then it's like sometimes that can hurt you bad, sometimes it doesn't hurt you bad enough, but then it's like, well, are you up against a rank 1 Chestnut, or how much attack does this Chestnut have? So it is a little bit goofy against Chestnut. But then I'm also finding that the defense, also combined with the HP, helps with general consistency as well. And when I say general consistency, I mean like against stuff that has like big fast move damage, like Charmers, Confusion users, and situations you're just not very familiar with, like uneven kind of situations. It just kind of protects you a bit more, so you're not taking extra charge move damage and extra fast move damage, so you're able to maintain that bulk to actually like maintain consistency, like have the same win ratio as the rank 1 Diggersby, if you will. Now before I get to the like canned IV spreads for you, I just want to take a moment to talk about Hyper Beam Diggersby specifically, because up until now the majority of this information has been in reference to, you know, just straight Fire Punch matchups and Earthquake matchups on Diggersby. When it comes to Hyper Beam Diggersby, if you have that 136 defense stat or higher, then you do have the potential to beat Azumarill and Vigoroth at a shield advantage. So you have to use more shields than they use, but you now have the door of opportunity to beat them because you're taking less fast move damage from them. And then you also have the potential with that higher defense stat to beat Talonflame more consistently. I don't know how much defense you need. I know it's higher than 133 and that it's less than 136. It's just kind of weird to pinpoint because of Flame Charge there, but I am noticing that the higher defense stat also helps out with consistency against the Talonflame. To that end, the higher attack stat as well, like the 94.6 attack stat, can help out against Honchkrow as well because you get the extra Hyper Beam damage, which can matter there. And then I also noticed that if you have at least a 95.5 attack stat, you can Hyper Beam KO the Shift Tree in the 0 shield situation, which is interesting. Now, if Shift Tree isn't the rank 1, you could probably get away with using the 94.6 attack stat too, but if it is the rank 1, you will need at least the 95.5 attack stat, which isn't too unreasonable to reach here. But yeah, so if you're looking at building a second Diggersby and have one being like the Earthquake Diggersby and one be like the Hyper Beam Diggersby or something like that, well, those are some cutoffs that you'll want to be mindful of. Alright, curtain reveal time. Here it is, the canned IV spreads for Diggersby that meet all these attack, defense, and HP stipulations. Now, these ones highlighted are the non-best buddy versions, so capping at level 50, and the ranks highlighted here are also not including the best buddy, so capping at level 50 for easy reference for you. And you'll notice, you know, they all got the 178 HP, they all got the higher than 94.67 attack stat, but not all of them have the 136 defense. There are 2 spreads here that are at 135-ish, and that's because like 136 is kind of rough, especially if you have the 178 HP stat. You can kind of skirt the edge a little bit. And these do have the higher attack stat, so you do have like greater potential for the Swampert matchup, the 1-1 Skarmory matchup, that kind of stuff. So it's up to you if you want to risk these ones, but I'd say generally the ones that are like the 145 and I guess above, those ones are going to be the better Diggersby IV spreads here. And of course, the rank 7 does kind of look like the tastiest one of them all, but that doesn't mean that these spreads in between here are any like worse per se, so I'd say trust these ones. Now, are all these spreads way better than the rank 1 Diggersby? I'd say, you know, like the 145 and up can be better in more situations, in my opinion, than the rank 1, but the rank 1 isn't like so much worse that you have to freak out about it. Like the rank 1's still phenomenal, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. And here are the best buddy IV spreads for Diggersby. There's like 29 of them, so there's quite a bit. Yeah, and then these two here are highlighted in green because they do have the potential to beat the Skarmory in the 1-1 shield situation, but not by clipping it from the Sky Attack. They actually body tank it because they have enough defense and stamina. Of course, this is against the rank 1 Skarmory, so if Skarmory has a high enough attack stat, then you're not going to be body tanking it. But, you know, it's just kind of worth highlighting. Like, whoa, whoa, look at this. That's pretty interesting. It's able to body tank that. That's cool. Maybe I should highlight it as being a little bit extra special compared to the other ones because it does this one extra special little thing. So that's why they're highlighted. But yeah, all these spreads are good. And I'd say like the range of these spreads kind of falls between like the 115 and the rank 1. So they kind of like weave in there. So in general, these best buddy splits are pretty nice. Now when it comes to the second group here, especially when you got the ones that have like 178 HP, it's like, is that really your Diggersby? Did you really have the best buddy for that one? Like, come on, man. It is a little bit worse than what, you know, the first group is. Obviously, these are sorted by stat products, so clearly these ones are going to be like less performing than these ones are, but more IV spreads to hit these specific stipulations of the Diggersby. All of these are great. The 179s and the 180s, are those way better than the non-best buddy, you know, 178ers? No, not really. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. But if you don't have those spreads, but you do have these spreads, well, then you might want to get walking your Diggersby so you can get, you know, the big cool Diggersby for the next limited format. Now, before I close out this video here, I do want to let you guys know about the forbidden IV spread on Diggersby, the attack weighted one. The one that hits the 97.47 attack stat, has the 178 HP, and the defense stat is still like workable almost. It's like 132, so it's pretty bad, but it's workable. And that is the 4-3-14, the rank 393. Now, is this Diggersby better than all the Diggersby I just mentioned? No, in a lot of situations it's worse, especially when it comes to shield advantage or shield disadvantage specific wins. It is notably worse, but it does have the 1-1 Skarmory matchup where you can clip it from getting that Sky Attack, which is really freaking cool. Now, other attack-weighted Diggersby that meet the defense cutoff, you know, they have like a 96 attack stat, for example, they can meet that against like worse ranked Skarmories, like less tanky than the rank 1 Skarmories, but this one does have the consistency for it. Now, is the consistency in that one matchup and then like against like the 1-2 Venusaur and like a Swampert matchup, is that really worth it compared to dropping all that bulk and all that consistency in other matchups? I don't really think it is. But if you do have this spread, I guess it is worth considering because it does do that Skarmory thing really consistently well there. So definitely not my favorite spread, but it's definitely one worth mentioning. And that about wraps it up for the Diggersby PvP IVs here. Once again, if you do have like the top 20 of Diggersby already built and it doesn't meet like the attack or the HP cutoffs I talked about in this video, I really wouldn't worry about it because you're so bulky that a lot of those, you know, situations you just kind of outbulk already, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. That said, if you haven't built a Diggersby yet, or you just have like a really, really bad Diggersby already built, and you're looking to build a Diggersby, then I would follow the stipulations highlighted here in this guide. I'm a little bit disappointed with the results of this because I was hoping that I could find a Diggersby that was a lot cheaper, that was really good, sort of like with the Dragalge IV guide that I did not too long ago, but it does look like you're going to have to take this thing to basically level 50 to get the most out of Diggersby. But it is what it is, I guess. At any rate, if you have any questions on this content, comment below, let me know what's up, and I'll be happy to help you out. And if you enjoy this kind of content and you want to see more like it, well, make sure to subscribe to SwagTips. SwagTips. I'd also like to give a special shout out to these Patreon supporters. If you want to support the Swagman on Patreon, link in the description. As of, what's it called? Flame Charge. But it's kind of weird because of Flame Charge,